Sports Shuffle. It is October 12th. I am flying Ryan Gophers along with.
Tampa Buttermouth, Joel Verlin here is probably one of the more weird stories I think of this week would be all of a sudden how you had Devontae Adams bump into somebody and now it's turned into an official criminal complaint. Well, not criminal, but misdemeanor.
Yeah. Court date set for November 10th. He did push the guy. Like, if you watch the video, the guy walks directly in front of him, and it's almost like a reaction, frustration reaction. He pushes the guy, he falls down, and then, of course, the DA. Oh, he caused bodily harm. He fell down. He might have gotten a concussion. It's like, you got pushed by an NFL player.
Like, dude,
Calm down. Um, there will
know
be
your
some
role.
kind of penalty for this. I don't know what. I guarantee a fine. There could be a suspension. I don't think so. Devontae Adams has no previous history. This is a
I would
misdemeanor.
also tend to think it would be light on the suspension since it's not a felony and we're just talking misdemeanor.
Yeah, maybe a game. I don't see this being a big deal in the grand scheme of things. Now, if you have Devontae Adams, you kind of hope that if he gets suspended for week number 7 and not week number 15 or 16 because, how these Alvin Kamara, after the Pro Bowl, got charged, no penalty as of yet.
Mhm.
It's still out there. It could still happen. You don't want that happening with Devontae Adams midseason. Nope. Don't push your sideline people though. That's step one. I do think the guy's a little bit at fault for jumping in front of somebody coming off the field because he did cut right in front of him. I mean, like within a couple of inches of hitting him with whatever he was carrying. It seemed like so. I get the reaction from Devontae Adams. In a frustrating post game environment after that loss, he was very unhappy on the sidelines and it apparently boiled over. So
Well, that's like right up there with the Daniel Jones asking Aaron Rodgers how he was. Yeah, little bit of salt being rubbed there. You know, you doing okay? Yeah, yeah. You just got schooled in London.
yeah. Yeah, that was. We'll get to all the games here in a little bit. The other big piece of news is something I called Matt Rule, no longer the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. I said on Saturday's show this will be his last game, and it was. Matt Rule has been fired with about 4 years left on his contract. He is set to be paid by the Carolina Panthers
And I think he
unless he
sold
gets rid of
something
somebody
like
else.
40 million still. So nice work if you
Yeah.
can get it.
So if he gets hired by somebody else and they pay him 20 million, the Panthers will still owe him another 20. I believe is how that's going to work out.
All
But the
right. I mean,
Matt Rule era is
if
over.
if this is you, do you take some time off? Do you automatically go after a college job, or do you do the cushy TV and studio?
$40 million to do nothing sounds like a pretty good deal to me. As a head coach in college and now in the pros, I'm sure he wants to get back into coaching as quickly as possible. But it is also the middle of the season. There are not a whole lot of openings. Of course, Nebraska's been linked to him after the firing of Scott Frost because he was god awful. Frost was the head coach of UCF when they were national champions. Yes, they have a banner and everything, but they weren't actually national championship people. Yeah, and Rob still hates kickers. So
Yeah.
let me see if this works. Yeah, there it is. Figured something out. So yeah, F kickers. I know he's keeps pushing me. We got to get rid of kickers in the 16 team league. I'm like, there's no support other than you and myself. Also, being that deep of a league, you kind of run out of players to most leagues
Mhm.
you get rid of the kicker, you put in a flex. You're already scraping the bottom of the barrel of the 16 team. I'm
Well,
not saying it's right.
when you're talking about kicker, that is definitely one of the biggest. I know that we haven't gotten to the games yet, but I think it's something we definitely have to bring up. The marvelous play calling of the Chargers going late that they did, and with Stanley's play calling yet again, seemingly to rear its ugly head. And the Chargers' only reason they won was because of a kicker
Miss kick.
missing. So, and but if the kick, if the Browns hadn't have gaffed and missed that, the Chargers could have easily lost on that play. That you know it's bad. You know it's bad when one of your own players real time tweets out, WTF are we doing? That's when you know it's bad.
Yeah. That Chargers team is destined to just find a way to lose enough games to miss the playoffs. It seems like they tried to lose this one. They didn't. They didn't manage it.
Oh yeah.
They
If
tried.
you were had any shares of Justin Herbert, you were definitely a little bit concerned early on.
Yeah. Anyways, let's go through some of the news and notes coming from practice this week and going back to Sunday. Rookie wide receiver for the Saints, Chris Olave, is in the concussion protocol, but has been progressing pretty well. He's in the third stage, so he might be able to come back this week.
You tend to notice, Ryan. You tend to notice a theme this week. You've got to go out and pick up X player off of waivers, and now X player is injured.
Chris Olave shouldn't have been on waivers. He was someone I was drafting and stashing a lot. Raheem Mostert for the Dolphins, who has become the number one running back, has a knee injury. Did not practice today. Do not know the extent of that injury quite yet. Jonathan Taylor did not practice. Still hopeful he will play. Kupp and Tyler Higbee did not practice, but that was a precautionary tale. Who's rehabbing on the side for Jonathan Taylor. Dak Prescott did begin throwing. Yeah, that's a good thing. Damian Harris out for a while with an injury. Kyle Pitts returning to practice today. Saquon Barkley limited, but not considered to be an issue. James Conner with a rib injury is day to day. We'll see what happens there. If he doesn't go, it could be Eno Benjamin for them. Mike Williams out with an illness, nothing to be concerned with. Carson Wentz will be active tomorrow night, but Logan Thomas and Johan Dotson will not. Saints have signed running back Jordan Howard to the practice squad because why not? James Winston back at practice, though, for the Saints. Steve Wilkes is the interim head coach for the Panthers after the firing of Matt Rule. Quarterback Sam Darnold could be activated this week, and Baker Mayfield is day-to-day with an ankle injury. Rodgers is a thumb injury, not a big deal there. Cameron Brate still in the concussion protocol. Tua has already been ruled out for week 6, still in the concussion protocol, but was back at light practice today, also in that stage 3 timeline. Let's see. The Cardinals-Seahawks game. This is a scheduling note. In the event that the Astros-Mariners series go to the 4th game on Sunday, the Cardinals-Seahawks game will be moved back from 4:05 to 5:30. That's the first time I've seen something like that happen due to a baseball game, but it did. Xavier Howard expected to play. Isaiah McKenzie has cleared the concussion protocol, so good news for the Bills there. Cooper Rush expected to start again this week. The big news from the weekend, other than the Devontae Adams possible assault charge, is the broken leg for one Rashad Penny. He will be out for the rest of the season. So if you had the ability to get Ken Walker or you had him on your bench for a while, you just got a starting running back on a surprisingly good offense for hopefully the rest of the season, but only time will tell.
Yeah,
Dalton Schultz re-aggravating his PCL.
16-team league, you go on and automatically probably type them in players and going, oh, yeah, already. Yeah, in the 16-team league, it's just like, just they're already rostered.
Yeah, 10, 12-team. I got him in a 10-team league and a 12-team league fairly easily off of waivers, but your more competitive leagues, your more knowledge-based leagues, and your deeper leagues, obviously dynasty leagues, not available at all. So that's the big news. My wife has Rashad Penny in both of her leagues. She is not very happy because Ken Walker is obtained in one of the leagues by somebody who is not really willing to trade them. So I'm sorry, I got a starting running back. So I'm gonna hold on for a while. Anywho, fantasy wise, we're off to a decent start. The ball's in the way, but 46-28 as I destroyed part of my set behind me overall. Only really 1 or 2 bad teams on this board. Of course, the one that Joel beat is the worst one, 1-4. Even though he was surprised by that win because he thought, hey, that team is definitely better than its record.
Well, when you look at Ryan's team and you're talking names like Christian Kirk, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when you're having those players and Herbert, when you're having that team that you're going up against, you're not projecting a win.
Yeah, it's been a tough go in that league. Of course, the 16 teamer, where I have the trophy just over my left shoulder here in front of the 9 and Jason Taylor's jersey. That one took a first
Hashtag
loss this
humble
week, and
brag.
it's down to 4-1. I mean, it's still a playoff contending team. Megalobol 8-2, not terrible. You get a win for beating the league median in that one. So all in all, not too bad. One undefeated team left right here, that 5-0. That team is very, very good. So, anyways, fantasy, not a terrible week, not a great week, 7-6. You might notice no records up here. We're still trying to get week 4 situated. We have our picks. They're just in places. I got to get them together and get the actual stuff in order. But yeah, that hurricane really messed us up.
One of the definite busts. How about Moore? Barely 2 fantasy points.
Which Moore?
For
you have Elijah Moore or Rondale Moore, and there's probably
Elijah.
More DJ Moore.
Elijah Moore.
Yeah, he's cuttable. DJ Moore, he's probably cuttable too. Benchable at the very least. Hopefully, some of these Panthers guys get traded because that is a dumpster.
Another one who definitely probably gave you a little bit of a disappointment. Injured again, Dalton Schultz.
Or how about 1 for 6, TJ Hawkinson?
Ugh. Yeah, because
tight end position's awful. If you don't have Kelsey or Andrews, it's just awful.
All of a sudden, Hawkinson looked like he was starting to come back. Something happened, and then just, oh my God, what the hell happened to the Lions this week? It was last week. We had night and day. We had last week. They literally lit the world on freaking fire. Both teams combined to do 90 points, and then you had the exact opposite this week, which was like what? And
yeah. Detroit is going to be very inconsistent. We have Jared Goff, and we have a very young core. So not a huge surprise there. There were several disappointments, but I will say the running back crop is starting to come around.
Can we call this the Hard Knocks curse?
I mean, the Hard Knocks teams in the preseason are always bad teams, so that's not a big surprise. The running back group, though, is starting to turn around. Derrick Henry, 3 good games in a row. Saquon Barkley still looks fantastic. Christian McCaffrey is coming into form. I mean, Dalvin Cook had his best game of the season. So some of these early round draft picks are coming around. There's also your Jonathan Taylor, who's hurt. Austin Eckler's been fantastic the last few weeks. Joe Mixon's still struggling to get it going. So, but you're starting to see signs from life from the running back position. So, all right, let's go to last week's game. We're not going to recap this one very much because it wasn't worth watching once. We're not going to talk about it again. Colts 12, Broncos 9, worst game ever. Moving on. Giants 27-22 surprise win over the Green Bay Packers in London over the weekend. The Packers come out to a 20-6 lead or so or 20-10 lead at halftime. Get outscored in the second half. Saquon Barkley goes crazy. Packers don't look great. They just don't. Romeo Doubs does seem to be the de facto number 1 receiver, even though Randall Cobb had the better day. But the Saquon Barkley machine is what's powering the Giants right now.
Because early on, you thought, first quarter 10-0. I mean, you're thinking, okay, it's typical Giants, and
you thought here's the real Giants.
Then all of a sudden, you turn around, fourth quarter 13-20. It's like, okay, they're starting to come back, and then just literally out of nowhere.
The Giants 4-1 in third place in the NFC East. Anyways, Bills 14-point favorite and covered with ease over the Pittsburgh Steelers 38-3. Gabe Davis, I traded him away to my opponent and lost. 3 catches for 170 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. It's not often where you trade away a guy who gets 3 catches and you immediately regret it like that, but good game for Gabe Davis. Josh Allen, 400 plus yards and 4 passing touchdowns. Diggs got a touchdown. Pretty much anything in the passing game was great for the Bills. If you have the Steelers, George Pickens seems to be the wide receiver's choice, but maybe Deontay Johnson's a buy low candidate, and Najee Harris is Najee Harris is starting to look like one of the biggest busts of this fantasy football season. if you have him and can trade him. I'm not saying in Dynasty, but at least in redraft, you have him and can still trade him. I think your window's about to close. Go do it if you can, but you might be stuck holding the bag this year on Najee Harris.
What a rough debut for Pickett. And yeah, I think Tomlin's going to be having his first losing season in a while, as it just all of a sudden, if you thought Roethlisberger was bad last year, and he was, it's still, we're seeing some pretty bad quarterbacking this year.
Yeah, it's a bad offensive line, and it's just not working out for him right now. The Bills, though, 4-1, have regained first place in the AFC.
Tomlin is definitely earning that paycheck this year.
Oh yeah. All right, next up, the game we alluded to a little bit earlier, Chargers 30-28 win over the Cleveland Browns. They tried to give it away. Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler are just absolutely absurd this year. Austin Eckler has come back in a big way after those two very, very bad week 1 and 2 performances. But the Chargers going for it on fourth down. We're going to wrap up the game. They fail. They give the Browns a chance to kick the game-winning field goal, and Cleveland's going to Cleveland, put it wide right, and fall to 2-3 in this one. The Browns, I think at 2-3, we're still surprised they're that good with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But to think they're a missed kick from 3-2 and beating a team like the Chargers, maybe this Browns team has some hope to still be in it this year. They're going to get Deshaun Watson back at some point.
Because everything is all about the running and the defense when it comes to the Browns. It's just amazing how close they are and how many games that they're still even in it. And you're going, all right, just imagine if they had a quarterback.
Yeah. All right, next up, we are out of winless teams as the Texans beat the Jaguars 13-6. Dameon Pierce has been so good. He was somebody I was very, very high on in the preseason. I didn't get anywhere near enough of him during that time. I did get him off of waivers in the 10-team league that Joel just beat me in because he was dropped for some reason. So picking up Dameon Pierce, we mentioned my lineup. I'm hoping that's going to help. Dameon Pierce and the Texans are on bye this week with the Lions, the Raiders, and the Titans. So those 4 teams on bye, get them out of your lineup. They're not going to be doing you any good. The Jaguars were once 2-1, and they put a fight into the Eagles last week, and I think I started to believe this might be a good team, and then they go and stub their toe 6 points against the Jaguars. James Robinson has fallen completely off the map. Christian Kirk has taken a step backwards, so Texans get their first win. They've been competitive. They finally get over the hump. The Jaguars look like they're going the wrong direction once again.
Yeah, but both of these two teams are just utter yuck, and you just sort of like anytime you see them on the schedule, so like just hold your nose.
Yeah, I think between these two teams, the only real consistent fantasy option is Dameon Pierce at this point. Next up, the Vikings 29-22 win over the Bears. Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook are very, very good at football. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but the Bears did put a fight into this team. We thought this Bears team was going to be god-awful. They've been scrappy. They haven't been good, but they've caught up. They've been in games that maybe we didn't expect them. Other than the Green Bay game, they really have showed out pretty well. So Vikings 4-1, playing Miami this week, who's likely going to be playing a third-string quarterback. They have a good chance to go to 5-1, and the Packers lost. So we'll get to that game here. We'll get to the ramifications of that game in a little bit. But the Vikings 4-1, easy win next week, we think, with Miami with a third-string quarterback. The Vikings look like they might be one of the teams to beat in the NFC right now.
Yeah, just as long as Kirk Cousins tends to not have to contend with any prime time appearances, he seems to do okay. And they were definitely more than passable, even with David Montgomery coming up with being fantasy relevant. And but all of a sudden, when you're talking about the first half and being up 21-3, that just sending a search engine to show you that, for the Bears, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, but they came back in this and made it a game at least. A team that didn't make a game is the Lions this week. 29-0 shutout loss to the New England Patriots. Jacoby Myers, very, very good. Ramondre Stevenson was absolutely unreal, and no Damian Harris, so he could be unreal for a few weeks. If you have a way to get him, this would be a good time to do it. The Lions go into the bye at a good time. DeAndre Swift was hurt. Amon-Ra St. Brown, still not 100%, but did play in this game. Hawkinson was bad. Maybe this is just a good chance to regroup for the Lions. They fall to 1-4. I think we're a little surprised they're 1-4 because they've been competitive. They've been a great offense until this week. The Patriots, though, 2-3. They at least maintain shouting distance with the teams immediately in front of them in the division through 5 weeks. This would have been a bad loss for the Patriots. It's a bad loss for the Lions.
Yeah, it's just you just saw how no DeAndre Swift definitely hurt the Lions big time. And just the biggest surprise of this game, I think had to be for me, was the Patriots and defense. You just tend not to think about the Patriots being able to do that in this modern time of 2022. Now, maybe 10 years ago, Patriots, yeah, but you're just kind of surprised to see that kind of defensive performance as you just all of a sudden just once again, it was the biggest WTF shift from the previous week. Almost the Lions putting up combined 90 points with another team, and then just all of a sudden, it's like you want the exact opposite. They totally run out of gas.
Yeah, the Lions bye week, but anytime you see them on your schedule for your fantasy guys, you're going to be pretty happy going the rest of the season. Next up, the Seahawks offense is actually pretty good. They don't win this game, but 39-32 loss to the Saints. Taysom Hill, 4 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, both touchdowns in this game.
And once again,
Walker was solid in relief of Rashad Penny after the injury.
It is once again time for Taysom Hill hype overreaction once again.
Yeah, now, if he's eligible at tight end in your league, as he is in most leagues, and you have a TJ Hawkinson, might be worth the shot, just in case. I mean, his upside is 4 touchdowns. We just saw it. His downside is he's not really in the passing game, but he's had 2 double-digit scoring game, one really low one, and one kind of in the middle. So worth a shot if you are, Darren Waller, if you are the Hawkinson owner, as mentioned. I don't think the other 2 are real relevant, Houston and Tennessee. But if you are somebody who's maybe had, I don't know, one of these other semi-highly Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, maybe it's something you say, let's give this a shot. So he's been very good. Chris Olave, if he's healthy, has been fantastic. No Michael Thomas, but hopefully Michael Thomas comes back this week. But honestly, Ken Walker, 8 carries, 88 yards and a touchdown. Very good in relief of Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny was off to a good day. The Seahawks offense is solid. Will Dissly is fantasy viable at tight end if you really need somebody. So no shame in this one on the Seahawks offense. The defense, a whole nother story. But a 39-32 win for the Saints keeps them only a game behind the Bucs in first in that division.
And with the way that these injuries are headed, we're going to be talking about, if not next week, the week after, DJ Dallas is going to be all of a sudden viable starter for the Seahawks. That's what
he might be worth picking up right now.
With the whole crazy way injuries are this year, as I ended up picking up Geno Smith just because in the 10-team league, my backup was, oh, good God, Baker Mayfield. And I'm like, yeah, going into the week, I'd have zero confidence in starting Mayfield because he has the absolutely worst QBR in the entire league. Is absolutely god awful. That's why I picked up Geno Smith.
Geno Smith has been a top 10 quarterback this season.
Because
Baker Mayfield's been nowhere near it.
Yeah.
So
he's been on like the opposite end of the spectrum there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to call it now. Geno Smith is going to be the NFL comeback player of the year. He's got to be. I don't think of anybody with a super major injury that's come and been like, wow, look how great they're doing. He was written off, like you said, and he didn't write back. But he was thrown to the wolves. He was said, you can't do it. You are a career backup. You're not going to be a starter. And he's now come out and took a team that we all thought was going to be awful. Last place in the division cleanly. They were going to be in that conversation for first overall pick, and they're 2-3. They're battling teams like the Saints that a lot of people thought, myself included, were going to be playoff caliber teams. Both are at 2-3.
Much better than you have either the Washington Commanders, good God, or even the Carolina Panthers that are horrid.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are horrid, the Dolphins without Tua. We knew it wasn't going to be great with Bridgewater, but when you lose Bridgewater immediately, it gets ugly real fast.
And the team that you lost to.
The Jets, 40-17 win, a lot of short fields. Dolphins gave them a lot of ability to score points very quickly. Skylar Thompson not looking great.
Whacked.
Yeah, third string quarterback. I mean, I think
you have a loss, and then you got whacked.
Now, Joel, I'm going to ask you a very honest question. Who is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' third string quarterback?
Do
you know?
Do not know that off the
How do you think your team would fare if he had to play 55 minutes of an NFL game?
Not too
Probably
damn
bad.
well.
Yeah.
So
once he goes in this game, I think Dolphins fans went, well, this is going to get ugly real quick. It was 19-17, and then the Dolphins just imploded. The Jets actually have looked like a very capable team, at least offensively. That defense is better than expected. These young players are starting to mesh. So maybe the Jets are, I'm not going to say they're a great team or a good team or even a playoff contending team, but they're 3-2. They have been good enough so far. The Jets, I don't think a lot of people believe in quite yet because the Jets have been bad for 15 years. The Dolphins, though, have not lost a game with Tua as the full-time starter. They're not going to have him again this week, but hopefully back in week 7, get the thing going. They're probably going to be 3-3, though. Now, if Tua comes back, rights the ship, hopefully things will get better for Miami. But I think if you're a fan of the Dolphins, as I am, you chalk this one up to, what's our third string quarterback? What the hell else? What are we expecting from a third stringer who didn't get starting reps at all? I mean, it was going to be bad. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle also banged up. So we throw the Dolphins fans throw this a win. Jet fan, pump your fist because you got a big win over a team that 2 weeks ago was really ascending. Breece Hall, almost 200 yards. And yeah. If you can get Breece Hall on a dynasty league, it might be worth your interest. I mean, I've got Najee in a place. I'm trying to find a way to get rid of Najee and get Breece Hall, and I don't care what else I got to give up to do it. It's getting to that point where it's like he's too good. You can't.
27.70 fantasy points from Breece Hall. Not too shabby.
Not too bad from the Rook. All right, then we move on to the Buccaneers' 21-15 win over the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit of controversy at the end of this one with the, let's say it was a roughing the passer. It wasn't the worst call over the weekend for that call. That comes later.
Gift to Tom Brady.
He gets so many of them. Wasn't the worst roughing the passer call of the weekend, but it was very, very close. It does give the Buccaneers that win. Leonard Fournette looked very, very good, and that's pretty much the end of the list. Mike Evans always looks solid, though. Joel, your Bucs now 3-2, first place in the NFC South. The Falcons and the Saints just a game back. I'm guessing that's at least the best you can hope for right now.
Yeah, considering what some of those games we had, I'll take it.
Yeah. All right, next up, Titans 21-17 win over the Manders, the Durs, the Turds, whatever you want to call them. I don't like the Commander's name, but it's what it is. Derrick Henry looks like he is back. Antonio Gibson, 3 carries for 6 yards. Welcome to why we said don't go for Antonio Gibson. If you had him in Dynasty, as I did, you trade him, get him off your roster. His career as a starter is done unless McKissick and now Brian Robinson are both hurt. And I don't see that happening again. Brian Robinson, decent. I don't think anybody expected a whole lot from him in this game, but was decent in his first NFL action coming off the gunshot wounds. Titans, 3 in a row. First place in the AFC South. Derrick Henry's getting it rolling. I think this is a team that's still very, very viable. Going to be a playoff team, and they're going to be a tough out just because Derrick Henry and that defense will keep them in enough games. All right, so Let's go to the game that got Matt Rule fired. 37-15 win for the 49ers over the Carolina Panthers. The Niners defense with a touchdown. Deebo Samuel with a touchdown. Tevin Coleman, a name we haven't said in a while, 2 touchdowns to this one. Baker Mayfield looked awful. Christian McCaffrey still very, very fantasy viable though. So that's a good thing if you're worried about fantasy. But DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, everybody else just no. For the Panthers, is only Christian McCaffrey. Panthers 1-4. Needing a head coach, I think it's time to sell. I think it's time to try and trade everything you can to get as many picks and just start the proper rebuild now.
And just when the defense is all over Baker and Mayfield, you have the moves absolutely rain down. You have a late sack on Baker. It's a very, very rough day. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't exactly light the world on fire, but yeah, you compare 2 touchdowns compared to what Mayfield ended up.
Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown to the Niners.
Yeah. I think usually when you tend to throw a touchdown, you want to throw it to the team with the same uniform.
Baker Mayfield doing the 2019 Jameis Winston stat line so far this year, where he's throwing him to the wrong team way too often.
Yeah, that would be like the you're going the wrong way from planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, and with that, the 49ers at 3-2, all alone in first place in the NFC West. Just where we all thought they would be with how good that division was last year.
Yep.
It's been a wild year in a lot of ways. So, anyways, as the screen reloads the scores, we move on to the next game. The Eagles, 20-17 win over the Arizona Cardinals on the last second missed kick by the Cardinals. They do not have the normal kicker, and that's why it was missed. Eagles go to 5-0. Jalen Hurts 2 rushing touchdowns. Not his best performance. Miles Sanders, one of his worst games of the season.
Yeah,
not as much of a fantasy upset as I thought.
Clutch performance by a kicker.
Yeah, not the fantasy bonanza I think I was expecting, but a solid game. The Cardinals gave them a good run at home, but the Eagles do remain undefeated. The last undefeated team in the NFL, first place in the NFC West, first place in the NFL, or NFC East. And interesting test next week against the Dallas Cowboys, who beat the Los Angeles Rams 22-10 on Sunday. The Rams, other than Kupp, other than Higbee, look completely lost. Cam Akers, 15 carries for garbage yards. Darrell Henderson, not a factor. Matt Stafford, not good as well. Tony Pollard, a long touchdown run, but outside of that, it was mostly a defensive game. Cowboys, undefeated with Cooper Rush at quarterback, 4-0 this season, plus a win last year. He is 5-0. Going into next week against the Eagles game, it is a Sunday nighter, so a 9-1 combined record through 5 weeks. That's the kind of game you want on Sunday Night Football, even though it's Eagles Cowboys. You see it once a year, even when both teams are bad. So this at least is going to be a good matchup. Concern for the Rams has to be high right now, right?
Yeah, if you had any shares of Stafford, of Kupp, of all the usual suspect of Akers, you're just absolutely scratching your head fantasy-wise going, WTF is going on right now.
Yeah, there are teams like mine in Dynasty that have Darren Waller, who's disappeared. You have Cooper Kupp, not Cooper Kupp, Cam Akers, who's completely disappeared. And you're like, I gotta play somebody, and these guys are in your lineup, and it just hurts. It's a league where you can play like 4 or 5 running backs or wide receivers every week. It's just tough. All right, next up to the Sunday nighter: Ravens 19, Bengals 17. Ravens 3-2, the only team with a winning record in that division. The Bengals do fall to 2-3, but it was a better game. The Ravens defense showed up for the first time in, it seemed like, all season. They didn't blow a lead. Actually, some controversy with I'm going to kick the field goal instead of go for it again. Then the Bengals go to the touchdown. They come back and get the game-winning field goal. J.K. Dobbins disappeared. Mark Andrews still good. Lamar Jackson has had better days, but this one was just fine. Jamar Chase was decent as well. T. Higgins, a bagel. No points. And I know Rob lost by about 1 tenth of a point because of the goose egg
And
from T. Higgins.
you actually did have a kicker who was actually good at his job.
Yeah, Justin Tucker, possibly the best kicker to ever play the game.
And you definitely have to give it to him as here he is. He's being interviewed and he's giving it to the team. He's the ultimate player who's giving back kudos and making it seem like it was a team victory, even though he was the reason they won.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, the Monday Night Football game: Chiefs 30, Raiders 29. The worst roughing the passer call I've ever seen on a sack fumble strip that is recovered by the defense before he actually comes down on top of the quarterback, even though he tried to brace his fall, happened in this game. Raiders get up 20-7 after that bad call. The Chiefs fans are giving them the business. Chiefs go down, get a last-second field goal before halftime, and then just dominate in the second half. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was nothing, but Jerry McKinnon was fairly solid in that second half, and you got to mention Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce linking up for 4 touchdowns, all to Kelce from Mahomes. Just an absolutely insane performance. 7 catches for 25 yards and 4 touchdowns for Travis Kelce. Josh Jacobs, though, looks like an absolute steal in fantasy this year. He is off to his best start in his career. I think he back-to-back weeks had his personal best in rushing yards. The Raiders, 1-4. All their losses by less than a touchdown. Very disappointing start. Now they might lose Devontae Adams to a suspension. Still more to come on that. The Chiefs, though, next week, 4:05 against the Buffalo Bills in an AFC divisional round rematch of that classic game last year. So I think the Chiefs 4-1 look like Chiefs-Bills winners going to take control of that conference and possibly get home field in the playoffs. Kind of established in week number 6. All right. Any more thoughts from last week's games before we go on to the barn burner we've got tomorrow night?
No. Let's go to the barn burner.
All right. We have a football game that will hopefully be better than Denver and Indianapolis was last week. However, on paper, you might be like, I doubt it. It's the Washington Turds, the Commanders, the Durs, the Commies, the Manders, whatever you want to call them, going to Chicago to face the Chicago Bears. 1-4 Commanders versus 2-3 Bears. As far as fantasy options go, forget about it. This is a game with it's David Montgomery, and probably that's it. Maybe Terry McLaurin, but it's not a fantasy game. If there's ever a week that people that are addicted to fantasy football, they can skip it, this might be it. Washington's been awful. Chicago's been surprisingly decent. But I don't think there's any confidence in either one of these teams, which means it could be a very wildly entertaining game or a complete dumpster fire, but it probably is going to be competitive at the very least. We're going to hope it's better than last week's Thursday Night Football game. We do have to suffer through another Denver Broncos primetime game on Monday night. So the NFL owes us a good one on Thursday night and Sunday night to make up for the torture that will be that game. I don't know how you handicap this game. Like I said, there's not a whole lot going here. I think this is going to be interesting in its own right.
Especially with the other ones, and you tend to think, okay, Broncos is how did the Colts win without Taylor, and the Colts ended up winning that one in overtime. So
yeah.
I
also would like to petition the NFL to move that Buffalo Kansas City game to Sunday Night Football and get that or Monday Night Football and get Denver and LA onto Sunday. I know it won't happen, but we don't want to see Denver again. Anyways, Washington, Chicago, who you got?
As hard as it is to have confidence in the Bears, it's worse to have any kind of confidence in the Turds at all. So I gotta hold my nose and take the Bears.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Commanders. I don't like it, but it's such a bad game that it's not really even an
Ryan,
upset.
even with Nagy not on the Bears anymore, Ryan still can't do a team. That
Well,
was
they're
one
the
coach for
lowest
Matt
passing
Nagy.
volume. They're the lowest passing volume in the team. Washington, in theory, has a good a defensive front that could shut down the running game. Everybody knows it's going to be a handoff most of the time. So you would think that somebody's eventually going to go just load the 9 in the box, single cover the receivers. Justin Fields can't hit them anyways, and shut down that Bears offense. Carson Wentz, for all of what he is accused of being, which is garbage, he does tend to show up in primetime games. He tends to play better when the lights are on him. Now,
You,
given it's
you
better
know it's
on
bad
Carson Wentz.
when the coach is asked, "What's the main reason about your team?" Quarterback.
Quarterback. But we don't regret getting Carson Wentz. But you just said he was the problem, bruh. What is that about?
Right.
So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm going to take Washington mostly because this one can legitimately go either way. This, if I was doing a confidence pool, which I'm in one, this is my 1 point game. I'm like, I have no idea which way this one's going to freaking go. So I'm going to take the Turds. I'm going to take the Washington
This is
Commanders.
called a who's game.
Yeah, this is one of those. Maybe I know I'm behind Joel in the standings. Maybe this is a way to get one cheap back because, looking at some of these other games, you know who's going to be picked to win them. This one is one of the few real toss-up kind of games, I think, this week. So I'm going to take Washington, be a little contrarian, and frankly, I just think Carson Wentz is going to be the better quarterback this week. Not saying much, but he did have 2 great weeks to start the season. Chicago's not a great defense. Maybe he rekindles some of that.
It's like when you're thinking, okay, do I take Justin Fields or do I take Carson Wentz?
I think you take the field. I think you take anybody on waivers over those two. All right. So that's our pick. Hopefully we get better games coming forward on the primetime slot because this week's starting to end pretty rough. At least you get to see the Chargers. At least you get to see the Chargers on Monday night. That should help things out. But yeah. Anyways, time for final thoughts, and we'll start with Gio.
For final thoughts, I'm going to have you choose number 1, door number 1, or door number 2.
Oh, if you're giving me an option, I'm taking a deuce.
You're taking the deuce? Okay, so that would be deuce. Door number 2 would be, that's right, Tom Brady.
I picked door number 1.
Tom Brady following LeBron James into Major League Pickleball ownership. That's right. This is the thing. This is the thing. It came up. It's sort of one of the things that you're like. It comes up into your news feed, and you're like, "This is not an onion thing, is it?" And you're checking. No, it's real. There. You have pickleball. You have owners of pickleball clubs, and apparently now, Tom Brady is a part owner of a pickleball club. So I'm just sort of like, okay.
I don't understand the appeal of pickleball. I can't. I mean, I know I'm into disc golf and pretty heavily, and shot a 9 under on the course yesterday, and I felt really good about myself. But I don't get the appeal of pickleball.
You want to know what the other?
Yeah, let's go. Let's unveil what's behind door number 1 because it hopefully is
door number 1. Yet. Are you ready for this headline?
Oh boy, this sounds better already.
New Zealand proposes taxing cow burps to reduce emissions.
See, I'm so bad at picking. I picked the bad final thought too. I thought it was the cow farts that were the emissions, but I know the burps are doing it too.
I'm leaving you with that headline because that's just you're going. I can't follow up anything else with that story other than that headline is just absolute perfection in of itself.
Cow burps being taxed by New Zealand.
Which one is? How does one regulate that?
I mean, you got to put something outside, but in front of the cow's mouth, and wait for him to burp.
Excuse me, sir. We need to scan this region for a cow burp, sir.
I assure you, there are no cow burps here. They're all cow farts. Oh no, that's not. That's going to be a defense someone's going to use, though.
I have my actual cow burp scanner. I have no idea how one would scan that. Anyway,
It's gonna be like a Geiger counter, I think. It's just gonna go and beep like nuclear radiation. Um, for my final thought, I'm just gonna simply say, know the bye weeks are coming. Plan ahead. Don't wait until the week you need the guys. If you have the roster spot and you can do it, go get the guy now for the week 7 bye. Go get the guy in week 7 for the week 8 bye. Plan ahead. Be ahead of your opponents. Something that not a lot of people do, and also watch who those people are dropping because you will get some names that you're not expecting. You're going to see probably Elijah Mitchell go on to the waiver soon. He's on IR. He's supposed to be back in 2 or 3 weeks. He's the number one running back for a run-heavy team. Keep an eye on stuff like that.
Might be
Cordell Patterson. I just told you I picked up Damian Pierce last week because he was dropped. You're going to have somebody. Last year I picked up David Montgomery off of waivers because he was injured for a little bit in the 16-teamer, and it helped me win the league. So pay attention who gets dropped because someone's going to make a mistake. That mistake can benefit you and make your team better. Again, there is no team on this board behind me that cannot rebound and be a playoff team, even that 1-4 right there. Or there's no team
playoffs.
There's no team on this board, including this 5-0 one, that can go without care. You need to still be on it if you're playing fantasy football. The season's not over 5 weeks in. That 1-4 team can end 10-4 very easily. That 5-0 team can end 5-9 if you don't take care of it. So plan ahead. Monitor who gets dropped.
As long as you're not having like the meme, where are my 0-5 people at?
Yeah. And they can still finish 9-5. I'm looking at this little too serious right up here. 3-2. Disappointing loss this week. Got Josh Allen. It happens. But I play 3 people I've already beat again. If I beat them, that's 6. And then I got to pick up 1 or 2 to make a playoff spot. Once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. In fact, it seems like that year or that league, somebody who gets in at 6-8, 7-7 makes a run. So there's no, again, even if you're 0-5 or 5-0, monitor who gets dropped, plan ahead, and keep working. It can all still turn around good or bad. And also, there's some times you're going to have a bad beat. My auction league started 0-2, should have won, but Devontae Adams had about 40 points in a PPR format, and he stole wins from me. But that's a 2-3 team that I feel very, very good about. So, again, plan ahead, monitor your buys going forward. Don't give up because it can turn around for the good if you keep working or for the bad if you take your foot off the gas. People will make mistakes. People will get lazy. People will just stop in some leagues. So that's my final thought. Just be diligent. It's still a very long fantasy football season to go. All right. Well, that's our time. Joel, anything else you want to throw out there before we go? Anything on the Cal Burps research?
Nope.
All right. So that's our time. I am Flying Ryan Gilchrist along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verland.
And we'll be back either Friday or Saturday to cover the rest of week 6, recap this amazing Commanders Bears Thursday night football game.
Hallelujah, holy bleak. Where's the title?
And get you ready for the rest of week number 6.